Dan Brown is one of the best-selling authors ever. He has sold more than 200 million books worldwide, and if early sales continue, his latest book is set to be just as successful. The book Inferno is set in Florence, and the author is here promoting it. Harvard professor Robert Langdon explores clues, codes and symbols about the 14th century poet Dante. He crosses Florence and tries to save the world from a deadly artificial plague. The plot and title were all inspired by Dante's Divine Comedy.
The origin was Dante Alighieri. I knew that I wanted to write in Florence. I knew that I wanted to write about Inferno. But in my books, I try to write about the old and the new. I write about the Vatican and antimatter, or Freemasons and noetic science. So I wanted to connect Dante to the modern world. So the idea was that we have a villain who sees Dante not as history, but as prophecy. And he's able to look at the landscape of Inferno with the dying bodies and the starvation and the overcrowding and say, this here, this picture that Dante paints, this is the future.
But at the heart of it all is also the city of Florence as the setting for the book.
Certainly the most pleasurable part of writing this book was coming to Florence a number of times, coming to Italy and spending time here immersed in the history. And I come from a country that is very young. In our country, if something's 200 years old, that's very old. You know, here they'll say, oh, your coffee cup is 200 years old. It's nothing. So to come here and absorb the flavor of the history, to stand in the spaces and on the piazzas where Dante and Michelangelo and Leonardo and Machiavelli, where these great figures stood, is very, very inspirational. And for me, it helps remind me that what I'm writing, though it's about the past, is still alive, is still relevant, and is still important to talk about.
Many of Florence's most famous locations are mentioned in the book, the Duomo, Vasari's Corridor and the Uffizi Gallery too. But other more modern places are referred to, for example the English language newspaper, The Florentine. Dan Brown refused to comment on who he can expect to star in the film interpretation of the book, but we can expect to see the city full of movie stars. He did say he would warmly welcome one famous Italian actor and director.
That it would be an incredible honor if the great Roberto Benigni would participate in some way. I know he's a Dante enthusiast, and thanks to YouTube, I have seen all of Tutto Dante.
Dan Brown hopes the book will reignite people's interest in Dante's Divine Comedy. The Dan Brown guided tours are already on offer for tourists wanting to follow Robert Langdon's journey through the city, to trace the clues of Dante 700 years after he lived and wrote here.